presentation after 20 minutes will be stopped to move on to the period of question. A period of question of a maximum duration of 5 minutes is assigned to the jury at the end of the presentation. I would like to remind to the jury that it's mandatory to ask at least one question during the period. I will invite the judges to introduce themselves and then the team can begin.
Hi, Francis Martel, Procurement Manager for Denham Canada.
Hi, I'm Véronique Lambert, Business Planning Manager.
I'm Véronique Paris, I'm Vice President of Corporation for Denham Canada.
Dear Danone executives, I would like to invite you to close your eyes for a second and imagine yourselves on a fishing trip. The sun is shining, it's a beautiful day, and all of a sudden you hear a loud splash. Excitedly you open your eyes, look around, and there it is, the biggest fish you've seen in your entire life. The type of fish you don't even exaggerate when you tell your pals about your fishing stories. Now what do? Do you dive in unplanned, trying to grab that fish desperately as soon as you see it? No. In this scenario, you are the fisherman, and Malaguem is the fish that you have just spotted, and you had the foresight to think about it. What is the best strategy, now that I have this fish in my sights, to reel it in and to make sure that I can fully benefit from having found this amazing fish? Hi directors, along with my team, Austin, Gabriel, and myself, Dominic, we comprise Dagger Consulting, and we'll be providing with you the strategy today to make sure you reel in this fish. Now, our agenda for today consists of, we'll be doing an analysis of various factors regarding your current situation with Malaguem. Next, we'll be moving into our strategy going forward on how to proceed, as well as an implementation of said strategy to have all the operations up and running by year 2019 when Malaguem plans to come to Canada. So this brings us to our mandate. We wish to provide you today with a recommendation for the distribution method which fulfills all of Malaguem's needs as a client, and to go above and beyond to make sure that once you've spotted this fish, you really reel it in. So while doing so, we're going to be focusing on 3 main objectives as well. So to reduce total waste to below 10%. It was brought to our attention that as a company, you definitely really value green initiatives, and being wasteful is not in line with those goals. So that is one of the main issues we've decided to tackle as well. We also want to maximize client satisfaction. So this is a new venture for Malaguem, and they will definitely be looking to get rid of any inconveniences along the way. So maximizing client satisfaction is the best way to make sure that you keep this excellent and very large client who is expecting actually to be demanding 2.5 million crates annually from you as a supplier. And finally, we want to implement an agile distribution method that can actually be applied to all clients moving forward in the future. Now, as we move forward into our analysis, here are the points on which we will be focusing. So there's the project control analysis, as well as a cost analysis of the 3 different options that were presented to us. A linear availability analysis, as it was mentioned that this was another one of Danone's priorities. The pillar alignment analysis, so how each of the 3 options aligns with your goals and visions moving forward. And finally, a weighted score based on each of these decision criteria and how the options satisfy them. Now I'll hand it off to my colleague to move into the remainder of our analysis.
So what we wanted to do first is to weigh all these different analyses that we're looking at based on the importance that you presented to us. So firstly, project control is comprised of the responsibilities that you will have depending on which system you go with, which is the 3 options of the vendor managed inventory, the client managed warehouse, and the logistics platform. So platform control is really about your responsibilities, your duties, and how much risk you'll be assuming depending on which one you select. Then we wanted to look at cost. This was very important both for Malaguem and for Danone to make sure that your operations are efficient and you do it at the lowest cost possible, and that's why we gave it a higher percentage. Thirdly is linear availability. So this is the amount of available stock that you have on your shelves to make sure that your customers, when they're looking for your products, it is always available when they need it at the quantity that they desire. Lastly is the pillar alignment with your 4 pillars, which really focused on making sure that you have a high quality product, making sure that it aligns with your cost containment strategy and your cold chain management strategy, which is making sure that all your products stay cold and that they are available whenever your customers desire. So first looking at project control is we wanted to look at 2 decision criteria within this, which is your supply channel and your duties. So with the VMI strategy or the vendor management, what you'll be doing is you'll be interacting directly with the warehouse of Malaguem. So you won't have to deal with any of the individual stores, and this applies to the warehouse model as well. However, with the flow model or the logistics model, you'll be interacting with a logistics platform where there's no stock and no inventory. So there's a much different relationship in terms of what you'll be required to do. Secondly is with your duties. So with the VMI system, you assume 100% of the risks. You manage the entire supply chain of their products coming through while they manage stock. However, there's only a 2% loss that they incur on any sort of negative impacts while you assume 100. So this, considering overall, is not a very strong option in just this category based on the high percentage of risk and that you have to manage the entire supply. Now looking at the warehouse, it requires just a little bit less. You focus on just picking, which you can easily lower with costs with your current system, and the other company can focus on just with its warehouse. Lastly, with the flow, is you focus on the assembly of all the crates that will be put on trucks and the transportation costs, which might be high overall and not as good as the warehouse, but because this has no inventory and no stock, there is a lower cost and lower duties, which is what Austin will touch upon next.
Thank you. So I'm going to walk you through the 3 different options that you have here and some of the costs associated with them. If you have any questions about how we arrived at these costs, I can go into that a little bit more detail later. So first of all, we're looking at your revenues, and this is based off of the 2.5 million crates of product that will be sold in Ontario during the test phase of the rollout for these stores. Now, this was based on the proposed percentages of the stock that you're going to be keeping in the stores for each of the 3 different warehouse management systems. So you're looking at revenues of just under $38 million approximately for each of them. Now, based on the different categories, they each have a certain percentage of stock, of safety stock that they're required. So now the VMI and the warehouse, they require 5 and 4 days worth of safety stock to be kept in the stores respectively, whereas the flow requires only 3 days of safety stock kept in the store. So we can see that the cost of the spoiled goods is the lowest in the flow management system because of the least amount of safety stock that they require. Therefore, the milk products and perishable goods, they don't go bad as quickly. There are penalties assessed with having late deliveries as well as not fulfilling your deliveries. Now, you proposed service levels of 96% with the VMI, 96% with the warehouse, and 97% with the flow. So the costs associated with those service levels, with those stock levels in the stores, are actually much higher than this. So what we've proposed is increasing these service levels to 97% for VMI, 97% for warehouse, and to 98% stock levels, so that this reduces the cost of not having enough stock in the stores and reduces your overall operating costs. And again, this aligns with your values and wanting to deliver the best possible service to your customers and not have them miss out on any of your products. Now again, after accounting for the cost of storage, transportation, and penalties, the flow option here generates the most amount of revenue. So not only are you going to be delivering the best possible service, it is also the most profitable for your company moving forward. So coming back to this stock, to the available stock in your stores, we're just going to look at this a little bit further. So when shipping pallets to the stores under the VMI system, full pallets must be shipped. So if a company orders, for example, 27, about 150 crates worth of product, you actually have to ship a full 200. So again, you have to overship because of the design of this system. Again, you have to maintain 4 days worth of safety stock, and you have 1 employee forecasting the demand for the stores. So again, there is a lot of judgment here, and due to the nature of having to over-order, there is the potential to order too much and have some of your products spoil. Now, in the warehouse method, you don't have to ship full pallets, but they do have to maintain 5 days worth of safety stock. And again, Danone here assumes responsibility for the picking, so these are more costs that you will be incurring on your end. And finally, in the flow system, the aggregate orders are received from your clients, and then they're shipped immediately. So once all of these orders come in, they're shipped to the plant. The platform holds no inventory there, so there are no holding costs, as well as it's a much leaner system, and they only have to maintain 3 days worth of safety stock. So again, this is really important when you're dealing with the products that you do, these very perishable items, and you want them to be as fresh and deliver that satisfaction to your customers. So the key takeaways we have here is under the VMI, there is a low risk of stockout, but there is a very high risk of having spoiled goods. And again, for the warehouse, there is another high risk of spoiled goods and also a high risk of incorrect orders because you have one employee forecasting the demand on your end for all of these stores, and they don't have that same contact with the stores. However, for the flow option, you have direct communication with the stores, and this has the lowest risk of having your product spoiled, which results in the lowest amount of cost. Now my colleague will take you through the rest of our analysis.
Now there's a lot of technical elements to be looked at here, but with consumers as well as certain store owners becoming more and more informed about the background of companies, it's very important to stay true to the pillars of your company in terms of ethics as well as some of your long-term vision and goals. So here are some of the elements that we believe for each option that should be taken into consideration when moving forward in the analysis of these options. So for the VMI option, you assume entire accountability for the service to client, which is great for that client. It does add a lot of pressure on your current distribution systems, however, and it does build a relationship based entirely on reliance. So once you take control of that warehouse management for your clients, they will in fact rely on you entirely for management of that warehouse. So it does in fact help retention, however it does not help client relations. They feel like they're there because they have to stay in this scenario, rather than because you're a great, than showcasing the fact that you're a great consumer to be working with. Now the warehouse option, as we take a look at that, it has the highest amount of safety stock, which is nice. You want to be a reliable supplier. You want your product to be on their shelves. However, you also put a very large emphasis on freshness. So you want your product to be as good as possible. And people are very specific with their dairy products. They want to make sure that this is all fresh. If anyone's opened an expired dairy product, it's never pretty. So this is definitely a high priority here. And it's also less collaborative. You're saying you're taking care of your duties, they're taking care of their duties, shake hands, that's the end of it. There's no emphasis on customer relations. And next, the flow option. So it's the most collaborative option. You're actually building a relationship with the customer. So the customer you're supplying now actually has to open effective lines of communication with you to communicate effectively their needs. It also opens the door to better forecasting in the future, which can actually help lean up your own production. And it is the ideal option for product quality and freshness, since it has the minimum amount of days for safety stock, and it's a much leaner system. So you're shipping it more on demand. So as we move forward here, our key takeaway is that the flow option, once again, offers the greatest alignment with Danone's commitment to the client, as well as to the end consumer using their product. So now as we move forward, we've weighted each of these within the decision criteria that we presented to you earlier. And we gave them a weight in terms of how we thought that they weighed out within each of the categories. So as we look at the total weighted score on the right, highlighted in green, we see the logistics platform. So once again, the flow option is the highest with the weighted score. From the more qualitative perspective as well, as we mentioned, once again, it's very much in line with what Danone seeks to be as a company for customers as well as consumers. So it is the option that we have retained moving forward. Now, I will let we're going to move into the strategy. The first part of the strategy, of course, is to implement the logistics platform, so the flow option that we've been discussing. And my partner will discuss the rural implications moving forward as well.
So you come to us saying that you wanted to explore the possibility of shipping lower volumes of items to suppliers in rural areas, so less accessible. Now these are your small grocery stores out in the woods by campsites that really deal with a lower amount of product, but you want to still have your product available to these customers because a healthy lifestyle shouldn't discriminate based on location. So what we propose you do here is have the individual stores place orders directly with you. So this is a direct communication with someone in your procurement department where a store will place orders on an as-needed basis. So if they find that they're out of product and they need more, they will call directly. So the products are then shipped as ordered to stores, but they're not shipped by you. It doesn't make sense, both in a timely manner and a cost manner, to have a delivery person from your stores drive out into the woods to ship this product. So what we propose is using local mail to deliver. So these are services such as Purelator. So what will happen here is you'll be forming a partnership with these delivery systems so that they will take their product packaged appropriately and bring it up to the stores. So this really allows for a great amount of flexibility and meeting the needs of these smaller consumers to give them the same amount of service that you would to anyone else.
So what we wanted to do next is see how do we implement the flow logistics model and the rural model. So our implementation phase has 3 phases. So first you want to prepare. Prepare with all your hooks and rods and worms and make sure you're ready to go out and catch that big fish. Secondly is you want to promote. You want to tell everybody, we've got a big catch, we're all prepared and we're ready to go. Lastly, we want to prosper. We want you to show off that fish to all of your competitors and make sure that you're really benefited in the future with this partnership. So I want you to keep in mind at the bottom of the slide our goal for each implementation phase. So first here is we want you to establish your network in Canada. We want Megalom to make sure that they're established in Canada. So first is secure land agreements and building permits to make sure that they have their 100 stores that they required by the time 2019 arrives. Secondly is we want you to connect them to Canadian suppliers and manage any cross-border complications that they have since they're largely located or solely located at the moment in the United States. Lastly, we want you to compare and align your IT systems to make sure that they're compatible when you start working together, because this is a huge thing that's coming along with supply chain management systems, and you really need to make sure that they work so that way there's no faults when they actually come to fruition. Secondly is promote. What we want to do here, what we want to build is your foundation. Make sure you have a strong base for Canadian operations once your stores open. First is purchase trucks for delivery. As Austin pointed out, you're going to have an increased supply and they're going to be demanding 2.5 million cases per year, and you're going to have to accommodate that by getting more trucks. Secondly is you want to hire and train new employees and to accommodate the additional demand. And since that this is such a large corporation, they have about $100 billion in sales in the States alone, you want to make sure that some of their top managers come over to Canada to assess the environment and make sure that they get the operation up and running in their crucial 100 locations, and then potentially they can go back to the States and you can integrate more Canadian employees.
And now moving forward into the long term, which we have called the prosper phase. So it is where you get to reassess and reevaluate the efficiency and cost to make sure that you're fully functional as efficiently as possible. And next, consider an expansion to Western Canada along with Melagwam. So they're currently just giving it a trial in Ontario. However, it was shown that Western Canada is actually the biggest market for Danone. So Melagwam seems to be relying on you as well for some advice on how to proceed in Canada. And it would be an excellent recommendation from your perspective if they were to expand further into Western Canada. And now looking forward. So a very broad strategy looking forward. This applies especially to the rural option. So people are moving more towards a shared economy. And it's great to have a fully functional operation system. However, what can we do more with this operation system? Well, if it can gain you environmentally conscious consumers as well as great press, well, that's an added bonus for you. So we believe you should consider forming micro partnerships with other suppliers in order to supply rural stores. As it was mentioned that there was a lot of empty shipping capacity for yourselves when supplying these stores, as well as for many of the other suppliers. So it's senseless to be sending all these trucks to a small store, wasting gas, when we can instead very easily go green and save on costs with simple partnerships and collaboration. Now, as we look at some of the risks and mitigations, that may occur. So there's the possibility of stores being delayed entering Canada. We know entering a new market comes with all kinds of uncertainties, for Melagwam in particular. We believe there's a medium probability of impact, and we've decided to address this issue by the planning of the operations to be ready for the eventual launch. So essentially we should assume that they're going to start at the very earliest date possible to be ready for any eventuality. And the next possible risk is that the stores are not meeting sales expectations. We believe the probability is medium. The impact would be high. However, you do have a lot of other stores you are supplying. So it's not an immediate enormous threat on you. We have, however, decided to leverage improved operations with your existing suppliers. Now it is up to you which fishing story you want to be explaining when you go see your pals the next time. Did you catch that fish, or did you let it swim away? Thank you all very much.
Thank you. What's the risk of going in the flow model?
So some of the risks that you could have there, because you're not ordering enough, as much volume and having as much safety stock as some of the other models, there could be a slight risk of having stockouts or not having that enough inventory. That's why when we talked about, instead of servicing stores to 97% capacity, we'd like to see it at 98% capacity. So we think that would be one way to mitigate the risks of not having enough product, as well as just keeping those open lines of communication there so that you're meeting their store's needs.
What does the transportation penalties tell you in the flow model P&L?
Yes, of course there is the highest risk of those. So that is partially why we mentioned as well refining some of the forecasting that's happening. So the flow model definitely has the greatest communication. So the penalties may be present at first, but from a long-term vision, this is really an opportunity of growth for Danone. Seeing as you can use that as an incentive to refine some of your forecasting, which can actually help you lean up your production as well. But at the same time, as you iron out those wrinkles, and currently it's a fairly minimal amount if you look at it as a big picture. So on 2.5 million cases, we're looking at, I believe it was $50,000 in terms of provision for that penalty. So long-term vision, we believe that this is a problem that'll get smaller and smaller as, once again, communications and forecasting get refined.
When you said one thing we can do to make sure that we don't go with stockouts in the flow model is to increase the service level. What's the impact of increasing the service level? How do you do it, and what parameters does that play on?
So that's just having more product in the stores. So it's not a huge increase. We're talking about a 1% increase, and having that 1% increase, like my colleagues mentioned, will reduce some of those costs. But it's just about having more product available and just shipping a higher volume of product, because for that model you do have the least amount of safety stock. So we believe that just shipping larger volumes of orders will be able to deal with those issues.
And what's the impact of sending more products? What are the risks?
So the risk of that would be you will have the risk of the product spoiling and that sort of those risks there. But again, we believe that those open lines of communication, ordering as needed, so that will be able to help mitigate those risks, because the stores, they'll be placing the orders for product that they need, not unnecessary products.
You mentioned that clearly that the advantage for Malagwam would be to have a good linear availability if they use the flow model. But how did you really convince them to use this model? Because there is some disadvantage for them to use that model. So do you have some other arguments for them?
Yeah, of course. We are asking a little bit more of them in terms of the communication that we want. However, if they're considering a full-blown expansion into Canada, of course they want the optimal option moving forward. So we believe that the cost associated with opening up those lines of communication, for example, and the small chance that at the beginning they may be at a higher risk of stockout, is by far outweighed by the fact that it's a more efficient process moving forward for the years to come. So yes, maybe in the first 3 to 6 months, they may encounter some bumps in the road. However, it'll certainly be worth it to them in the long term, looking at the long game, especially since grocery stores in particular, it's such small margins that they're making on such high volume of product that every little cent counts for every single product and every single shipment.
I have one last question. In your decision criteria analysis slide, why did you rank logistic platform higher than VMI for the project control? Why do you have more project control on the logistics platform?
So with that, you're in charge of basically the transportation and the packaging of that. So how you have more control than the VMI is you're in charge of the entire supply system, whereas you already have a large transportation network established in Ontario, and there's a bit less of risk there.
And there's no VMI. We do not have that control with the VMI.
On the VMI, you're just controlling the supply, so you'll be transporting Danone products to their warehouse, and then they'll distribute to their stores. Whereas with the logistics, you'll be sending it to the platform, which will send to individual stores.
The way we also looked at project control, we kind of tried to make it a little bit all-encompassing when we were looking at it. So we actually kind of looked at it from a perspective of like how advantageous is your position in terms of project control. So this also includes the responsibilities you're assuming. So VMI, you're assuming a lot more responsibilities for spoiled products. So we decided that the actual project control you have is less advantageous because it's a type of negative control. You're accepting that responsibility. So it was kind of a way of having an all-encompassing decision criteria here.
And what would be the meeting?